What's up, dudes and dudes to the internet? My name's Scythe, and we are back again with some more Trove to Die Fish. So today we're actually going to be talking about my Gunslinger. Pretty much everything about it, actually. We're going to be most of all focusing on the stats that I have, the gems that I have, what you can potentially end up doing to build your Gunslinger, why I chose the Gunslinger, and also all of the different styled items that I have, just because I know people are constantly asking, like, what's that costume? What's that helmet? And junk like that, right? So let's just get right to the costume first and foremost, because I know everybody's just going to be wanting to know all the stats and everything like that. But the costume that I'm using is actually a craftable costume, which is, whoopsie daisy, it's right down here. It's going to end up being... Where is it? This one right here, the Jet Jammer. So you can kind of see with the resources right here, it's a little bit expensive, but it's going to end up actually coming with the costume itself, a gun style, as far as I remember anyways, and a helmet style. However, I'm actually kind of using a mix mash of different things here. These guns are actually mastery locked, so you're going to end up going to the mastery tab as far as the weapons are concerned, and there's going to be this gun style right here. Honestly, I completely forget when these end up unlocking. I've had them for years, so it doesn't really matter to me. But then I'm just using the fiery aura for them, which is one of my absolute favorite. And then the style for the helmet is the angelic hood. And that's actually going to end up being from a completely different costume, which... I don't even think these are tradable anymore, but if we end up going all the way down here, we got the Fey Trickster costume, the Guardian Angel. I really don't think, like, are these even tradable? No, I don't think that they are. But anyways, the Guardian Angel costume, you pretty much have to get just for the helmet style. I don't even actually care about the costume for the Fey Trickster or anything. I just think that this is one of the best helmet costumes in the entire game. Oh, sorry about that, folks. I'm starting to get a little bit coffee. Not coffee, the drink. Coughing, like wheezing. No, seriously, I'm a little bit under the weather because of all the craziness that's been going on in my personal life. Going out into the cold is not necessarily recommended for somebody who does commentating for a living. But in either case, then the style or the aura that I'm using for the helmet is just going to be the restless one that you end up getting from a tier 2 merchant fixture, right? So then the stats of all the weapons and stuff, the rings that I'm using are just going to be magic find and magic damage, obviously. Stellar 5 ring. I ended up actually buying this off of somebody because I couldn't get them for myself otherwise. You want to go for crit hit if you're struggling in that department, but generally you should actually be okay as far as crit hit is concerned with the Gunslinger. Because there's a few classes, like the Gunslinger, the Pirate Captain, and I think a couple others, that actually have higher crit hit generate on the character as you level it up, as opposed to some of the other ranged characters which don't end up generating as much crit hit, and thus you need a lot more on the class in order to actually make it viable. But the rest of my gear is just very standard fare, just going to be fully maxed out stellar gear with attack speed and just crit damage second stat ideally, crit hit on the guns right here of course, and then just magic find on the helmet. I don't need the crit hit on anything else really, and attack speed is going to end up being mandatory to the build. You're going to have to go for that because pretty much the entirety of this build is based off of the Gunslinger's classroom ability, and that single-handedly throws him well over the top as far as Shadow Towers are concerned. For normal grinding, I kind of use my Gunslinger just for grinding and farming and stuff like that, but when I'm like really trying to hunker down and be efficient, I just swap back over to my Neon Ninja, which you can refer to my Neon Ninja Rage Speed build, because that's pretty much the fastest way to actually farm in the game, whereas the Gunslinger, I use him for Shadow Towers, right, because he's just the best. Then you're going to want to use the Chronomancer Cubesley, because that's going to end up reducing your cooldown by 25%, also the extra magic damage, obviously. And then if you can take it, you go for the chromatic emblem instead of the sure strike, because that's going to end up reducing your cooldowns every time you end up using a pot. So because of that, again, you're just trying to spam your ult as much as possible. And for some of the more bigger battles, you want to just try and stay alive for longer rather than just relying on your pots to get your cooldown lower and stuff. Death Defying is just standard. You have to use that with pretty much everything in the game. Lots of people try to argue otherwise, which you can use other vials and stuff if you use Unyielding. I don't know if is Unyielding a vial, or is that like a yeah, okay, that's an emblem. So if you end up using this, it actually gives you brief invulnerability in the game, which is very, very useful for Shadow Towers. But generally you're going to want to have all your attack, and because you have all attack, like you can see, I have 260,000 health. I would have less because I actually have the fixture in the club that gives me more health. And pretty much when I'm in like Ultra Shadow Towers, I just get one shot by everything. Then you want to use the Lunar Lancer subclass ability, obviously, not because of the physical damage, but because you're going to end up transforming with Lunacy mode, which gives you more attack damage, yes, but most of all gives you more attack speed, because that is pretty much what you're focusing on. And that's where also, if you're going into a Shadow Tower and you actually have somebody that can spare their time, get a candy bar, because when they cast their ult, that's going to give you tons and tons of attack speed that is going to end up giving you that much of an edge in the Shadow Towers as well, right? And then, of course, because of this, the way that the subclass ability scale is power rank ends up increasing the subclass ability, whereas the Lunar Lancer's level is going to increase the raw physical stats that it ends up giving us, right? So potentially, it works in 5,000 power rank intervals, so I could get my Lunar Lancer to 25k. Good luck with that, just so that I could actually have the subclass ability be that much stronger, and thus my Gunslinger potentially being stronger. Now let's get to the meat of it. First of all, my power rank, 25,856. Yup, that's because it's mastery based, and as I'm slowly end up increasing in my mastery, because as of right now, I'm mastery 532. I don't know if I'm ever going to end up gaining more mastery than that, but my stats are as follows. We've got base magic damage at 122,000, and then I just got bonuses from a bunch of other things that I end up using, not to mention you end up getting bonuses when you go to Shadow Towers. However, you end up getting your stats kind of nerfed at the same time. Crit hit is going to be over 100%. There's not really much I can do about that. And then there's going to be the crit damage is going to be 1673.3. Now, here's the thing. People always ask me like what you should actually be going for in stats. And that hasn't really changed since my older tutorials talking about like my Shadow Hunter or my Neo Ninja build and stuff like that. Crit hit is like mandatory for a lot of the characters because of the fact that you want to be critting like all the time, because it's just essentially more damage, right? So of course it's going to be more damage equals less time spent killing things, and your survivability ends up going up because of that, just because you're using Death Defying and you want to get out of combat as soon as possible. Crit damage is a stat that I see people like to think that this stat is more useful than it is. Generally, I've done a lot of testing, and I don't know if there's something just wrong with the stat, or if it's just because of the way that it ends up multiplying, but it's not really like a mandatory thing. I would actually say it's more important to go for raw damage at all times, at least until you end up getting over 100,000 of your base damage. If you get 100,000 base damage of any class, then you can start focusing your attention on getting crit damage and start pulling away from the raw damage. But even then, it's not like it's going to make that much of a difference. We're talking about very small intervals of damage changes right here. So you don't really gotta worry about it too much. And then all of my gems, fully augmented. I guess I should actually go over into the gem table over here just so I can show you what they look like. So we've got my Spirit Surge, which is taking damage, has a chance to spawn a ring of projectiles applying damage over time. The only reason that I have that is just because it was pretty much the only good and power gem that I had. Otherwise, I would have actually liked to go for a good one as Pyro Discs. That ends up giving you more movement speed. But Spirit Surge is okay just because of the fact that it gives you more damage output, and that's what it's all about, right? So you can see I've got 2 squares. That's what these things are actually called. We're not going to call them like diamonds or anything. We're just going to call them what the game calls them. So we got 2 squares, even though they're not even a square, on magic damage, 1 on crit damage, and then none on the crit hit. I actually have, I don't think I have any squares on crit hit, except for maybe 1 or 2 of my gems that just has them spread across the board rather than having the 2, 1, 0. I think it's just 1, 1, 1, but we'll see when we get to those. Then there's just a fire gem right here, which has 3 squares into crit damage, none into magic damage, none into crit hit, and yet we're still sitting here with over 100% crit hit. And then we got this other fire one right here, which I put the stats of 2 squares into crit damage, 1 into magic damage, 1 into crit hit. Again, this is because I was testing things out, and let me tell you, the re-rollers suck. Like, seriously, they are absolutely trash in this game. But I ended up kind of re-rolling my stats, and essentially, as far as I can tell, my Gunslinger is perfect, or at least as perfect as I can get it, outside of needing to have gems that just randomly generated a little bit stronger or just with different stats to them. But you know, this is pretty much the best that I can end up getting for this character. And here's my class gem, which is going to be 2 to magic, 1 to crit, and then, of course, 0 to the crit hit itself. You can kind of just see all of the stats of all these yourselves, but generally, do you really need to? We ended up actually taking a quick peek at my stats anyways. 2 to the magic damage, but you can see right here, we actually generated, like, this gem is not necessarily as good as like the wait, was it this gem, or there was another type of gem where you can end up getting it to generate with a little bit more raw damage that obviously we didn't end up rolling here. And no, I'm not confusing it with the empowered gems. Joe, for example, has like gems that are like godlike strength. I don't know what's going on with his gems. They're like so super duper powerful. Maybe it's because he generated 3 squares and just raw magic damage. Actually, I think he's physical damage because he still uses the Shadow Hunter, but that's besides the point. We got these right here, and then we just got these right here, which, of course, again, I just put most of it into my raw magic damage. I swapped a couple of them, like as you can see right here, this is crit damage instead of the magic, and all it really did was give me like 1k more damage. That's what I mean when I say I'm at the point where I'm pretty much perfect as far as the Gunslinger is concerned. Because the only thing that you can end up doing is changing like small intervals of stats, which just increases your damage by like 1k or 2k and stuff. Not even like 10,000. And even if it was, that's like trash anyways. It doesn't matter in Ultra Towers at that point. So then here's my water gem right here, which is Mired Mojo. Taking damage has a chance to spawn a ring of snaring projectiles. That one is kind of gross. I wish that I didn't have that one. I would rather have had Cubic Curtain, or again, Pyro Disc would have been great. But it's not like you can choose the ability that you have on the empowered gems, right? Which, I mean, I guess now that we kind of understand how the augmenting works, you can technically end up going for whatever empowered gem ability you want, but I didn't know how it fully ended up working when the augmenting first got added to the game. I just kind of got lucky with the gems that I've got and didn't end up getting to choose the ability. But you can see 2 squares on the magic, 1 on the crit damage, and then none on the crit hit, of course. And then we got the small gems right here, which again, I ended up going for the 2 squares on crit damage, 1 on magic, and then this one is just across the board 111. So this is probably my weak link gem, where I could end up actually getting a different water gem, randomizing the stats that would end up being better to have maybe 210 or maybe 210 right here, because again, I don't need the extra crit hit that we end up actually getting from this augmented gem, but I can't really be bothered to end up going the extra mile and getting more augmenters and stuff like that to end up getting my water gems up, because I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of slowly farming for it, but again, it doesn't really matter because I can pretty much solo all the way up to Ultra Hydra. Of course, Ultra Hydra just takes a while anyways, and then I just use a group for Dreadnought and have to have a tank for Dreadnought, and then just Ultra Daughter again is kind of the same thing, where you just end up having a group, and it's easy peasy once you get to those types of damage, right? So anyways, thank you so much for watching. Very much appreciated. Hopefully I ended up covering everything. I wanted to go in a little bit more detail for my Gunslinger because people just keep asking, and also just I've seen people asking me about my styles and stuff like that as well. The ally, I don't really use anything particular. I just use it all over the place. I do actually use the Phoenix because while Blocktron I feel actually fits a lot better with the costume and the theme, I do think that the Phoenix is just a lot cooler. Like, just myself personally, I love this mount, dude. Like, it's absolutely beautiful. But anyways, thanks for watching. Very much appreciate it. Don't forget to like, share, favorite, and subscribe for more daily content. That's also going to build up loyalty points in my merch store. Links are in the description for that, where you can buy this shirt and a bunch of other stuff for the holidays. And then for the fans that want to go the extra mile, you can always donate to me for absolutely free with Gawkbox. Links are in the description explaining more about that. Shine on, stay epic, everybody.